The following program is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not to be considered legal advice. Fraudsters Radio was created to expose the many scams and frauds that have so infected society today. Scammers, fraudsters, and rip-off artists abound, whether it's scamming homeowners with bogus foreclosure relief services, dating fraud, incompetent lawyers, or consumer rip-offs. It's high time the public has a voice. If you work in a profession that deals with fraud, or if you believe you were or are a victim of fraud, you now have a radio listening public that wants to hear from you. Please feel free to message us through our Fraudsters Radio Facebook page, and we may have you on the show as a guest. If you'd like to call in for today's show, the number is 646-668-8512.
And welcome, and thanks for joining us today on another Fraudsters Radio Show. This is Laurie Z. I am the owner of Credit Education Consultants. I'm a nationally syndicated radio host with my co-host, Storm Bradford, who owns Mortgage Fraud Examiners. Storm, it's going to be another great show because you know what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah, dear. It's securitization audit scam.
Yeah, and there's a lot of securitization audit scammers out there. As a matter of fact, when I Google it, securitization audits, there's still tons of companies. Now, you know, I know a little bit about it, but I think you know a lot more about how to maybe better explain to the listening audience what is a securitization audit.
Well, allegedly, it is to look at the chain of title, the assignments, anything that happened post consummation of the loan. That's basically what they're claiming they can do, is we'll find out who owns the loan. Nobody really owns these loans. They were all destroyed, and therefore nobody can foreclose on you. The note was split from the mortgage. Nobody can foreclose on you. All of those arguments are factually and legally incorrect. And the courts all over the country have said as much.
So what I don't understand as much as you, but I know that when banks basically sell off these loans, right, they bundle them up and they sell them off to what, investors, to other banks?
Yeah. Basically, securitization is nothing more where they consummate a bunch of loans. They take those notes, maybe 10,000 at a pop. They sell them off to some investor in Dubai or China or whatever the case may be, and pension funds and hedge funds buy them because of the interest that they can make on them. But basically, that's all securitization is. They get their money back. The bank gets the money back so they can go out and make more loans.
Okay. And obviously there were a lot of bad loans being made years ago, which resulted in a lot of foreclosures. And now it seems like it seems like it's happening again, because I work with a lot of mortgage people, and now the mortgage requirements are starting to relax back down to where people can go, like maybe they were able to get one, you know, a few months ago to 620 or 640, but there are companies out there that allow it at 580, so it's starting to show, more bad loans are going to be written. And what do you think? I mean, is that going to bring on more companies that are going to want to do securitization audits when these people get foreclosed upon?
Well, no, actually, and that's not all totally true what the naysayers are saying, because a lot of new rules went into effect that banks can't do some of the things that they could do in the past they can't do now. So that's not really true, although they are loosening the credit standards for people to get loans. That would just be on the homeowner, who would be someone like they did last time that were committing bank fraud by saying that they made X amount of dollars or had certain assets when in actuality they didn't. But I'll give you a little history, if I may, on how securitization audits got started.
Okay.
When the banking crisis hit, mortgage brokers couldn't sell mortgages anymore, so they needed something new to sell. and most of them started out doing loan modifications. And they basically, and I saw them charging as much as $10,000 to do a loan modification. And the crooked ones would take a homeowner's money, would do nothing, call the homeowner back, say, look, the bank wouldn't go with the loan mod. Even the honest ones, even at that time in the early beginning, these banks weren't doing loan mods until after they passed HAMP and things of that nature. So we did a press release on loan modification scams, and don't go to one of these loan modification companies, because you can go to HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and they will put one of their people on the phone with you to call the bank for free. So that kind of hit the airwaves, and they said, well, wait a minute. And because they were cheating so many homeowners by really a lot of them not doing anything, the homeowners were filing complaints with the AGs around the country, and the AGs all got together, and they got laws passed where you couldn't charge an upfront fee to do a loan modification. You could only charge a fee if the loan mod got done. So then these brokers were like, well, we can't make any money doing this. So then they went out and some of them bought software, and they were claiming to do these forensic loan audits. And all the software really did was recalculate finance charges. It was just another scam. It was a total waste. We did a press release on that. And Jerry Brown, now who's the governor of California, he was the attorney general at the time. He held a press conference and read from our press release that these forensic loan audits were scams. So then the FTC, they said they were scams as well. So then the broker said, well, wait a minute, this isn't working. We got to do something else. Then came the birth of the securitization audit. And since then, that's been the game. But now most knowledgeable attorneys, most people know and understand that they're just totally worthless. But still, there's homeowners that are getting banged every day. I know there was a company not too long ago who told me he still does $500 a month.
Oh my God! I mean, the thing is, people don't necessarily do their due diligence either. Though they don't look it up. They maybe hear it from somebody they know, and they go online to the site. They go, you know what? They want to believe. Like, there are lots of things that I read online that I want to believe, but I do more research, because a lot of times, if it's too good to be true, yet it kind of answers it right there. And I think, when you're talking about the mortgage people that ended up doing a lot of these securitization audits, well, that's because when the market, 10, 12 years ago, the bubble burst, they had no jobs because they weren't writing any more mortgages. So it was the only other thing they could possibly think of to do. And I think a lot of them probably got in trouble for doing it, right?
They did. A lot of these companies have been shut down over the years. Finally, we tell people that if you've had a securitization audit done, they're a total scam. They're a waste of money. You call and ask for your money back. If they won't give you your money back, call the AG in your state and file a complaint.
Right. And I remember years ago, you actually called a company. One of my clients gave me some information, and I believe you called someone, and you got that company shut down, but they were ripping people off for large amounts of money. And then you read about it in the paper, a year later, about how they're going to jail. So they're pretty much useless yet. I guess what I don't see is, why doesn't any regulatory agency really look at what's on? Do they not have enough people? They don't look at what's online to see, with all these companies that are still doing it. Like, they don't seem to get in any trouble, and they're still doing the same thing.
Well, the problem, Laurie, is like we spoke about these, stall attorneys, pretender defender attorneys that were basically just ripping homeowners off. Nobody complains, and they don't complain because they get inoculated, just like the attorneys inoculate the homeowners that, these courts are corrupt and you can't win in court and blah, 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 blah. Well, the securitization audit guys do the same thing. They tell the homeowners before they buy it, they say, look, these courts, they're in the bank's pocket, and it's all it's all criminal, and they're all criminals out there, and blah, 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 blah. And so when the homeowner loses their home, they come back Again, just like the stall attorneys tell them, the securitization audit guy would tell them, oh, yeah, I told you, it's these courts are corrupt. That's why you lost. But they lost because these securitization audits are virtually worthless.
Right. And I remember way back when that a lot of them, like I said, weren't just mortgage people. It could be anybody that bought the software that said that they could do it. It wasn't necessarily, it actually wasn't at all in any of the situations I came across as a credit consultant, finding out that they were working with a firm that dealt with lawyers doing it. It could be Joe Blow doing it, and then they would lose a ton of money and be crying that now they have no money. And the situation just kind of kept getting worse. But there are still a lot of companies out there, and I'm assuming from what I'm reading, it sounds like they're still charging a lot of fees, and the fees can vary from not a lot to a very, very large amount. And I'm thinking not such a legal thing, right?
Well, just like
it's deceptive. If you're saying it's going to help.
It is. And just like these loan modification companies, when they first started out, were $10,000, and then as more and more people got in because of competition, the prices, got lower. Same thing with these securitization audits. I saw them being sold for $5,000, $6,000, but then all these people jumped in it. There was competition, and I've seen them now as low as $750. And it doesn't take the person who's doing the quote audit probably any longer than 5 minutes to do it.
Ooh, because it's all computer all generated through a program on the computer.
It's all freely available information on the internet, and But probably one of the biggest problems is just like the stall attorneys who lose all these cases, just like these securitization audit companies that have provided this nonsense to homeowners and used them in court, where the courts shut them down and said it's ridiculous. The average homeowner doesn't have access to these court holdings. Like my company, our litigation support company, has access to. We see every foreclosure case as it comes down, and we read them as they come down, and we see what the courts are saying about this kind of stuff. But the average homeowner just doesn't have access to it, so they can't look it up like we can.
I gotcha. Okay, and one of the things I do want to talk about is, what are the courts saying when someone uses a securitization audit, they purchase it, and the attorney is trying to use it, but from what I read, a lot of these cases are laughable, and the attorneys are just kind of being laughed off, like by the judges, saying, "What is this ridiculous stuff?"
Yeah, matter of fact, there was a federal judge in Georgia who called these securitization auditors charlatans and their paperwork empty gimmickry.
Okay.
So these are the types of things that you hear. There's there's another company that they don't even do the audits themselves. They sub them out to this company, Certified Forensic Loan Auditors. So, but anyway, the court basically, when they saw the pleadings that they got, the pleadings that these people posted in court, which a lot of these companies do as well, they not only sell you the securitization audit, they sell you pleadings to go to court with. And so these people go to court, and when they do, they just literally get laughed out of court.
Yeah, and you mentioned the company Certified Forensic Loan Auditors. I think when people see the name certified in front of something, they assume it's like certified by the government, because there are credit repair companies that use the name certified in front of, like, certified credit repair. The problem is they're the ones doing the certification, not the government. So just because it has the word certified, it really doesn't mean anything.
No, they just, they're trying to give themselves some credibility. Matter of fact, it was quite funny. There was this, quote, an association who certified forensic loan auditors audit. And this association was an association of a guy working out of his basement who the members of the association were people who had taken this course that certified forensic loan auditors passed, and I called this guy up and I asked him. I said, "Let me ask you a question," and he readily admitted that this is what was going on. And I said, "Well, look, let me ask you a question. What do you certify? Who are you? You can't certify anything. And what the hell are you certifying anyway?" And he goes, "Well, what we do is we do a background check on the sex offenders list to see if anybody's a sex offender. And we're certifying that they're not." And I was like, "Well, what the hell does that have to do with foreclosures?"
Yeah.
But that was a scam, and I told him, I said, "I tell you what, if you don't shut that thing down, I'm going to call and turn you in." Well, he did, and when he shut it down, then certified forensic loan auditors basically said, "Well, we just basically certify things ourselves," which they, as you pointed out, they can't do. It's total nonsense. It's just another scam.
It is. It is another scam, and I want to go to a commercial break, and we've got more to talk about, so we will be right back.
Have your house payments skyrocketed under an adjustable rate mortgage? Have you been laid off or had your hours cut? Are balloon payments coming due? You need help from mortgage fraud examiners. To stop the housing crisis, Congress and the White House are pinning their hopes on homeowners renegotiating their mortgages. The trouble is, the banks are saying no 80% of the time. Mortgage fraud examiners can help you get the leverage you need to turn things around. They estimate that up to 85% of all mortgages are legally deficient. Mortgage fraud examiners can perform a mortgage transaction analysis and an appraisal to find legal deficits in your mortgage. It's like CSI for your home loan. Banks and lenders suddenly start cooperating when faced with a lawsuit for violating lending laws or appraisal fraud. Find out how mortgage fraud examiners can help you. Visit Mortgage Fraud Examiners. Call 844-920-7200. That's 844-920-7200.
And welcome back to Fraudsters Radio. Laurie Z here, co-hosting with Storm Bradford of Mortgage Fraud Examiners. We are talking about securitization audits. And, Storm, you referenced last week's show, which was pretender defenders, which were lawyers that really never actually win anything. They just stall and block. But even for people who purchase a securitization audit, that's not even going to stall and block if they have an attorney, because it's not really utilizing any type of legal information, as far as like who breached the contract first and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about maybe the court's rulings on how that works? Because I know in the years we've known each other, you always tell me, well, whoever has the note, is the one that can go ahead and foreclose, right?
That's correct. And let me preface it by saying that, these securitization audits that they, first of all, they can't be used in court. They're a hearsay document, so they can't even be used, number one. Number two, they all tell you, well, I'll come in and, as a witness and I'll testify for you and so forth and so on. They're not even going to get admitted as an expert because, again, when they testify, it's double hearsay. They're reading from a hearsay document that they got off the Internet. So it's just ludicrous what these people, are telling these homeowners. And, again, the homeowner is just totally unaware of it. And so when somebody uses one of these audits in court, they just universally get shut down and laughed at. Matter of fact, when we do part 2 of securitization audit scams, we're going to have somebody that's going to come on that is, in fact, suing certified forensic loan auditors because he got scammed. He literally got laughed at court, and he was a week or two away from losing his house. They were coming just to take it. He called us He had us do an analysis for him, saved his house, and then he went out and did some research on himself, and he said, because I told him where to go, as far as looking some of these cases up, like on Google Scholar and some other places, and he said that he couldn't find one case that anyone that had used certified forensic loan auditors had ever won. Every single one of them got foreclosed on.
Now, most of the people, when they go into court, are they – let me ask you a silly question. Are the lawyers themselves, the pretender defenders, are they selling the services of, securitization audit directly, or did they make more money by recommending companies and they got in trouble that way?
Well, they do both. They recommend these securitization audit companies because, again, what are they doing? Their outcome is to stall. So the longer it stalls, the more money they make. So anything that will stall, it will work. Let me tell you something that I did about 4 or 5 years ago. When we did our press release on securitization audits being scams, I like full disclosure. I like giving everybody a chance to talk if they want. So I called up a few of these securitization audit companies, and I told them what I was doing, and I said, look, you can, have comments within this press release. And some of the questions that I asked were, have you or do you know of anyone that has ever been compensated by a bank or anyone else, a homeowner, by using securitization audit? Answer was no. And this was, all of them were saying the same thing. I said, do you know of any securitization or other securitization audit company where a homeowner's gotten free title to their home because they used securitization audit? The answer was no. And then my third question was, okay, well, what good is a securitization audit then? And the answer universally that came back from all of them was, if somebody comes to court and they didn't have the note when they filed the complaint and we find that out, then the judge will dismiss the case. And I said, yes, they will. But I said, the bank's just going to come right back because they now have the note and they'll just re-foreclose. Well, you never know. Paperwork could get lost.
Okay, so now the homeowner is doubly screwed because they're hiring a lawyer that they think is actually going to, counterclaim or work against the bank, but they're really stuck with a stall tactics attorney.
Laurie, let me interrupt you for a second because I didn't finish my thought.
Sure.
So then I said to them, okay, good. I'm going to use your answers in our press release. No, I'm not giving you. No, you can't do it. You can't. I'll be out of business if you put that in your thing. So I'm not. You cannot use my comments. Every one of them told me that.
Mm.
So they knew what they were doing was BS. So that's why they didn't want it put out.
And that Storm, that so disturbs me because what I was saying was people, the consumer, the homeowner's hiring a lawyer, not realizing that they're not actually fighting for the house and it's just a delay tactic. And then either the lawyer or somehow they come across a securitization audit company and they jump on that bandwagon because they read what all these people, wrote. Half of them aren't attorneys anyway, and the other half are attorneys that are probably in trouble. And so it's like double injury. It's, adding insult to injury on a case where the homeowner just keeps getting sucked out for more and more money, and no one's actually coming outright. At least no government agency is making it might be on the website, but they're not really making the public aware. There's no public service announcements on TV. So unless somebody does due diligence, they don't know all this, and they just keep going and spending more money.
Well, the Federal Trade Commission has said these audits are scams. There has been, the government has come out and said they're scams, but you got to remember the homeowners not being inundated by government agencies telling them that these things are scams. They're being inundated by the scammers telling them this is what you need to use. Now, let me tell you something that will probably shock you. I know it will shock you, and it will shock listeners. Attorneys have to take continuing education courses in disciplines, and they get certain credit time, credit hours with these CLEs. What a lot of people don't realize is that a CLE does not have to be given by an attorney or a law professor. It can be given just by about anyone that purports to have any knowledge in a specific subject. I know years ago there was a guy in Florida, I can't remember his name, I think his last name was Hope was his name, but he was a nurse. He was a male nurse, and his claim to fame is that he had spent 1,000 hours reading the Truth in Lending Act, the RESPA Act, and these types of things. And this is and he gave a seminar on forensic loan audits to attorneys in Florida.
No, I think was that the one? I actually was there in Orlando to meet you, and I remember the story because you told me that even though you were a speaker, they asked you not to say anything about this particular speaker because it would upset everybody else, even though what he was selling was baloney.
Yeah, what they did was, well, that was just, that's a different one. But, I told them that I wouldn't be a part of any speakers group that was going to speak if, I said, I know this guy's a scam. And so I said, I'm not going to take your invitation to come speak. And then they said, well, we really want you to come speak, and, we'll pay for everything if you come to speak and so forth. So, but please, when you get here, please don't embarrass the other speakers. And as you recall, I did.
Yes, I do recall. And then afterwards, when it was over, you all came out of the room. They were all circled around you, asking, "Well, wait! What just happened in there?" So, I mean, one of the biggest things, I think the reason you and I get along so well is that we both tell people the truth. And, sometimes people need a reality check. I'm not an expert in every single thing, although I think you might be. But, if you're not an expert in a specific subject and you read something, just because it's on the internet does not mean it's true. And I find that's, when I get calls from clients as a credit consultant, Storm, people want to believe what they've read online, or they want to believe what credit repair companies tell them. And I've been doing this for 12 years. And so I have to explain to them that what they're reading, there's no way it could happen that way, that it's basically a lie and you're going to be cheated out of your money. In my case, I remember a couple of years ago, the FTC published an article saying that 95% of credit repair companies are scammers, which is why I'm not a credit repair company. I teach it so that people understand it. Just kind of like what you do when people go through the exam is you give them enough to understand what's actually going on. Whereas when they just hire a company and pay them and say, do it, they're clueless, right? I mean, that's a big part for the consumer is that they're clueless.
Well, let me tell you something. I try to use this as an example. I tell, anybody that will listen, I tell potential clients because it's helpful for them to try to understand where I'm coming from. I tell them, I said, look, I'm an admitted computer and internet illiterate. I freely admit it. And because of that, I can't tell you how much money I've wasted and I've spent with these so-called SEO companies that are going to do this and that and everything for you, and it never, ever panned out. And because I'm not knowledgeable in that subject, I got scammed, not once, 2 or 3 times. Right. But as I tell people, I'm dumb, but I catch on quick. And finally I caught on, and I said, look, this is just BS. And then I started asking the hard questions before I'd ever hire one of these companies. And this is what happens to homeowners. Homeowners are getting scammed because they're not literate in foreclosure or the law or anything pertaining to that. So it's very easy for someone to tell them something and have them believe it. These guys are very convincing. They tell them that they've won all these cases, which they haven't won at all. And the homeowner, and they said, well, look, we'll do this securitization for you. they can't, if the note was split from the mortgage, they legally cannot foreclose on your home. And then they'll tell them that every one of these notes was split from the mortgage. Well, the homeowner hears that. What do you mean they can't? Well, they can't legally foreclose on you. Oh, well, I need to buy this then. Then they do it. Then they find out the reality when they go to court. I try to tell everyone, you need to look at the court cases and see what the courts are saying, what works and what doesn't work when it comes to foreclosures, and you'll find that all of these different types of audits are nothing but scams. It doesn't work, and you'll find that the only thing that works is going after a problem with that contract.
Okay, well, I want to talk a little bit more about court cases, but we're going to go to a commercial break, and if you are listening to the show live, you can call in and ask a question. The number is 646-668-8512. We'll be right back.
Have you received a notice of foreclosure on your property? Do you suspect that you're involved in an unfair or fraudulent loan agreement? Are you looking for a way to save your home? Would you like to cut through all the misinformation and find out what really works? Would you like to learn strategies that the so-called gurus aren't aware of? If you answered yes to any of those questions, a professional team at Mortgage Fraud Examiners can assist you and your attorney with all of these things and more. Contract breaches, errors, statutory regulatory violations, fraudulent appraisals, and other fraudulent conduct cause most mortgages to be legally problematic. In fact, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation found that nearly 2,000 financial institutions they assessed received citations for significant compliance violations. They also examined appraisals and found out that of the 259 appraisals reviewed for accuracy, only 7 fully complied with professional standards. Attorneys who have followed our methodologies have received multi-million-dollar rewards and free title to the homeowner's property. There is a very high likelihood your mortgage contains an extensive error. At Mortgage Fraud Examiners, we know just how costly a missed opportunity can be. For almost 40 years, we have consulted, retained, and referred to by attorneys, lawyers, trial practitioners throughout the nation. Put another way, we are the trusted source for litigation support. A foreclosure is basically an allegation the homeowner breached the contract by failing to make timely payments. The contract is clear. The borrower promised they would make timely payments, and if they didn't, the lender could take the property. The only way to overcome the homeowner's breach is to show the lender breached first. Identify errors that would void the contract. Identify regulatory violations. Identify appraisal fraud and other fraudulent conduct. And the only way to find these wrongs is to thoroughly examine the whole mortgage transaction. This meticulous examination of your mortgage transaction and appraisal can identify legal defects that would make your mortgage unenforceable and entitle you to compensation or even free title to your property. Call us at 844-920-7200. That's 844-920-7200. 844-920-7200.
And we're back on Fraudsters Radio. This is Laurie Z with Storm Bradford. And Storm, we were talking about securitization audits, and basically they're useless. People still sell them. No one really gets them shut down. Can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the court cases you're aware of where they were used and, were laughed out of, people were laughed out of court? Because if the person's laughed out of court, at that point, have they lost the case and it goes to summary judgment? Or then you must have a lot of angry homeowners out there in situations like this.
Well, again, the homeowner's not angry because they were inoculated up front by the securitization audit firm telling them that these courts are in the bank's pocket. That's how, and what happens is the homeowner, then it's the court system that's crooked. This is, anything dealing with the courts, they're all crooked. It's not true. These courts their holdings are based on law that's 150 to 350 years old. But I'll read you from a case. And oh, by the way, and a lot of these companies that provide these securitization audits they provide them to homeowners that are going to go to court by themselves, known as pro se litigants. That's why they also provide the pleadings as well. But I'm going to read to you from a case. It's called Kerr versus Wells Fargo, and it was in a district court in Florida. And this is what the court said. The court said, much of the complaint focuses on the theory that any mortgage loan that undergoes securitization is invalid. Plaintiffs citing to the fact that their mortgage was securitized because they believe that this somehow invalidates their mortgage, extinguishes their obligation to repay the money borrowed, and bars defendants from foreclosing on their property. But plaintiffs' contention that the securitization of their mortgage somehow affects defendants' rights is meritless. They have identified no authority supporting their position, and the courts around the country have repeatedly rejected this line of reasoning. And then they cite several cases where one court said that stating that the subsequent securitization of a note did not deprive the defendant of any legal interest in the promissory note. Another one said dismissing pro se plaintiffs' claim that the securitization of their mortgage affected defendants' power to foreclose. And then the other court that they cited said rejecting the plaintiff's contention that none of the defendants had authority to foreclose because their loan was packaged and resold in the secondary market where it was put into a trust pool and securitized. And then the court went on to say, even setting aside the lack of legal authority, plaintiffs have alleged no facts beyond conclusory statements that make it plausible that securitization had any impact on defendants' rights or their obligations under the loan. Finally, plaintiffs apparently learned their securitization theory from www.fraudstoppers.org, as nearly half the complaint is verbatim from this website. However, the pleading lacks a single fact related to plaintiff's loan that supports the securitization theory of Fraudstoppers. In short, there is no legal or factual basis to find that the promissory note and the mortgage were invalidated or the debt rendered uncollectible by the securitization process in this case. Accordingly, plaintiffs' claim that defendants lack the authority to foreclose because the mortgage was securitized is dismissed. So there are hundreds of cases just like this where they name these scam companies, certified forensic loan auditors, these other ones, and so forth. Matter of fact, Laurie,
you have a list. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do have a list. Matter of fact, Laurie, a lot of these securitization auditors have been foreclosed on themselves. Remember when we were speaking about these stall attorneys that are scamming homeowners, and one of the biggest ones out there, Neil Garfield, he employed two of these securitization auditors, a Dan Edstrom and a Jim Macklin, who both lost their homes to foreclosure, and the courts literally laughed him out of court.
And so, I can see why.
And they continue to do these securitization audits. I mean, it's laughable.
Right. It's just like the credit repair scam. I think part of the problem, Storm, is that people, there's no real publicity about this stuff, or there are groups, as you and I both know, because we were on some of them just to see what they put up, that post stuff that's absolutely ridiculous. And yet you'll see people in the threads below commenting, "Oh yes, I this and this and this, and that's great," and they think it really works. And I guess I've just known you for so long that I question every single thing, because I know so many people that have been foreclosed upon or have called me for help regarding their credit reports. That it's crazy. But I'm going to try and give you a simple analogy, and you tell me with the note if this is how it works. It's really the same thing as if I borrowed money from you and I didn't pay you back. It doesn't matter how, but I could sell it. I could sell it to Dan, and Dan could sell it to Jim, and Jim could sell it to Chloe. And it doesn't matter how it got to Chloe. Chloe now has the note, so Chloe's the one that gets to foreclose, and who cares about the other people in between, right?
Yeah, well, let me, and I think I've said this before, that we were approached by a lot of pension funds and hedge funds that buy these notes from the major players. Last year, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac sold $18 billion in non-performing notes. That's notes where the borrower's not paying. And these pension funds and hedge funds buy them because they can buy them for like 50 cents on the dollar. And then what they do is they cherry pick the ones they want to keep, and then they, in the lower food chain, as I call it, to the lower level group of people that don't have as much money as the pension funds and hedge funds, they sell the rest to them. They cherry pick what they want, and then it gets sold to people below them until finally somebody like you and I can buy a note for 50 cents on the dollar. So whoever has that note can foreclose. As one three-judge panel in the circuit court said, I don't care if the loan's been securitized, pasteurized, or homogenized. Whoever ends up with the note can foreclose, even if it was burglarized. So, I mean, these people out here that make these ridiculous arguments are just harming homeowners, and they do it with impunity, and they know what they're doing is wrong because they know what the courts are saying. They know what people are saying to them. I have another lady that hopefully can come on in our next show. She was writing affidavits for a securitization audit company that got shut down. And she got sued by the bank. The bank sued her and the homeowners because they said that they committed fraud because they took this audit and filed it in the courthouse to try to collect the title on this thing. And she got sued, and then she realized that what she was doing was she thought what she was doing was right because she went to one of these, what she thought was a legitimate CLE, got the information, it turns out she got scammed. So, but these guys that are doing this stuff, they know that they're not winning cases.
Right. Now I want to back up for a second, though. You said she did it because of a class to a CLE, which is a lawyer's continuing education class. Then how come that particular bar didn't get in trouble for having somebody that was teaching people how to do that? It's like one big messy circle.
They're not paying attention. Here's this guy who's a so-called expert who came in and said, look, I'm going to give this talk on – they don't look and – they don't go to the CLE. They take the guy for what he's paying. There's a guy, I'm sure he still has his website up. It's called Mandelman Matters. And he did a whole expose on securitization audits being scams. And the head of certified forensic loan auditors who threatened to sue him and all this kind of stuff, which he threatens to sue anybody if they basically, homeowners that got ripped off and stuff. But anyway, he did a whole expose on it, on how these guys were scamming people. I mean, it's just, the problem of it is again, you have a couple of people out here that, and there's been a couple of things from the FTC that have said these things are scams, but that doesn't overcome the fact that there are hundreds of these securitization auditors, inundating these homeowners. I had a guy call me up one day and told me that he had, in combination, over 200 phone calls, postcards, and letters, somebody trying to sell him a securitization audit.
That's scary. It's a scary number that's a scary number.
And for us, I've had over the years, I guarantee, I have talked to hundreds of homeowners that have had securitization audits and lost their homes. Hundreds.
And yet they're not completely shut down by the government, which is a concern. It's a concern to me because I still get people who call. That's a concern, but they'll say, like the Federal Trade Commission, well, we're not that well staffed. I mean, my understanding, because years ago when I called the FTC, well, we don't have enough people to go out and do that. Basically what they do is they keep a tally complaint, is what they told me. When they have a large amount of complaints in a short amount of time against a specific company, that's when they actually look at the company. And part of the problem is there are so many companies that do this, they probably don't have enough people to go out and do it. So then it's left to you, the homeowner or the consumer, to try and figure out. Plus, keep in mind, most people want to believe. That's the biggest key thing. They want to believe what they're hearing because it's an emotional tie to their house. And I think the emotional part of it is, hey, this could possibly work, or even if it just delays it for a while if I do this. But in reality, it's really not doing anything other than costing them more money because there are other better options, right?
Well, I'll tell you what an article that I read one time in a psychology magazine where the evidence was it's that physically the logic center of the brain shuts down when people are stressed. It's like that fight or flee. Yeah. All of a sudden they see a lion, they're not thinking, they just take off. So when people are under stress, that logic center there shuts down. So anything anybody tells them, they believe. I mean, you know right. It. I know it. We have people.
Yes, I know it very well.
Called me up and told me that they have $100 million in a treasury account, and their Social Security number's the account number, and that they went and they made up a promissory note and sent it to the bank to pay off their mortgage.
Right.
Well, I've heard it several times. Well, about a couple of weeks ago, a lady called me again, and I tried to tell her, I said, look, this is total nonsense. She goes, well, let me send you to this website. I go to this website. They had like 5,000 members.
Right. It's what the people want to believe out of desperation.
Yeah.
You know, rather than the reality check. All right, hold your thoughts because I want to come up with solutions. So we're going to come back in just a moment. If you want to call in, your last chance to call in is 646-668-8512. We will take your question. Back in a second.
Have your house payments skyrocketed under an adjustable rate mortgage? Have you been laid off or had your hours cut? Are balloon payments coming due? You need help from mortgage fraud examiners. To stop the housing crisis, Congress and the White House are pinning their hopes on homeowners renegotiating their mortgages. The trouble is, the banks are saying no 80% of the time. Mortgage fraud examiners can help you get the leverage you need to turn things around. They estimate that up to 85% of all mortgages are legally deficient. Mortgage fraud examiners can perform a mortgage transaction analysis and an appraisal to find legal deficits in your mortgage. It's like CSI for your home loan. Banks and lenders suddenly start cooperating when faced with a lawsuit for violating lending laws or appraisal fraud. Find out how mortgage fraud examiners can help you. Visit Mortgage Fraud Examiners. Call 844-920-7200. That's 844-920-7200.
And we're welcome back to Fraudsters Radio. I'm Laurie Z here with Storm Bradford. And so, you know, we've been talking about the securitization audits. Basically, it's a bunch of baloney, really. People shouldn't waste their money on it. And I do want to talk a little bit, Storm, about what you do because you have the only company that does what it does. But before we actually talk about that, people who have been scammed, can they complain to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the FTC, the Better Business Bureau, the Attorney General? Like, those are the first four that pop up in my head that say, hey, I might actually be able to get something back. I might be able to get some money back without suing. Maybe there are some class actions. Who knows?
Yeah, what I would do, and my recommendation to somebody is to call the AG in their state and tell them, you know, what transpired. Because, like you said, regrettably, these government agencies, they get hundreds, if not thousands, of these complaints, okay? But there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these securitization auditors. So they don't have the staff to investigate all this. So
right.
Your best bet is go to the AG in your state. First thing, if it's me, I'm going to call them up and say, hey, look, you need to give me my money back. This was total nonsense. I got foreclosed on. So give me my money back. Plus, what we do for homeowners is when we do a transaction analysis, we have them send us everything, including any of these scam audits that they get. And then what we do is we show how the audit is factually and legally incorrect. and then they can take that evidence and then throw it up in the face of the people that sold it to them, and then give that to the AG as well.
Gotcha. So your company, basically, they're paying a fee, but unlike a securitization audit, your company, it's all being done by law-degree people, basically, by judges or by attorneys, retired judges, attorneys, people with a legal background that are actually going through, because I've in past years I've had clients send you, and I know they're sending like 2 or 3 inches thick worth of paperwork because you want every single document, including collection notices or loan modification notices, whatever it is, and then it's got to take someone an awfully long time, though, right, to go through each of those transactions.
Yeah, on average, we get 1,000 pages of documents from homeowners. We had one a couple of months back. We got 4,000 pages of documents. But we tell them we're happy because the more that they give us, the more of an opportunity we have to discover something to use. But it's attacking the transaction itself. Anything that happened post-transaction is not going to help you. It's got to be a problem with that transaction. Was I fraudulently induced by appraisal fraud, which is rampant? The FDIC found that 76% of the appraisals were bad. Right up in West Virginia, we spoke about this before. Miss Brown got $3.6 million out of Quicken Loans for being falsely overappraised and $700,000 from her appraiser. So this is the type of stuff that works, is actually attacking that contract itself.
Okay, so you're looking for who breached the contract first, were there any torts? I know that you also do some type of an appraisal examination, correct, to see, did it fall into the boundaries of where it should have been? Because you and I both know a friend of mine who did that, and the house was way over appraised. Unfortunately, he had a pretender defender who screwed up, didn't show up in court, and the judge would not allow him back in to fix it. And that's another pretender defender story, And I also want to talk about. I know that,
and as I recall on that one, they hired someone to do, because all we do is to show that there was appraisal fraud. We don't tell you exactly how much is overappraised because it costs us a whole hell of a lot more to do that. So he had hired someone to do what's known as a full field review retrospective, who, as I recall, was going to testify for that individual that the house was overappraised by $150,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and then the lawyer screwed that up, and could it have been a lawyer, but it was at that point he decided just to let it go. It was just too much stress, and a lot of, that's the other thing, dealing with a lot of this is stressful. So people who, it gives them hope when they think of securitization audit because it takes the stress level off, like, so I'm paying someone, and they're doing something for me that I think is going to help. And then in the end, oops, just got screwed again, not just by the lawyer, but by the company that did it. I know with your, I've sent you people for years and years, and they've all been pretty happy, I have to say, because they go, oh, my gosh, wow, now I understand. Because when they're actually reading it, they're understanding it when you explain it to them before they even find an attorney to go ahead and use it. So explain, just real quickly, how, if an attorney now sees the homeowner's exam that your company's done, then the attorney can contact you if they're not sure, because there are a lot of attorneys that don't know what they're doing in going back. So you actually can help those attorneys win those cases.
Yeah, I'm working with 4 or 5 attorneys right now that we've done exams for their clients, to walk them through how to get by. But they understand that in order to be successful in your foreclosure, you have to have evidence of wrongdoing. Right. And that's what we give the homeowners, the evidence of wrongdoing. We've never done an exam that we didn't find something that a homeowner could use, because of the amount of problems that happen within these transactions. But the key to anything is you have to have proof. And if you don't have proof, just like that case I read just a few minutes ago, there was no proof. They said these people could prove nothing, and all the courts have said this is nonsense. What we do is we give them the proof, plus we give them the court cases that show that that's what works.
Right, and I think another key thing to mention to people who do the exams with you, or actually anyone who has anything that has to do with the foreclosure, is open your mail, look at all your important papers, and save them. Don't throw them out. You'd be surprised. Even me working as a credit person, people don't. They'll go, "Oh, I threw out those envelopes. I didn't want to open them. They were from a debt collector." Yikes! You gotta.
Well, listen. I'll give you something even a little more ridiculous. I've had clients tell me that I'd say, look, what you need to do is you need to gather up all of your paperwork and scan it and email it to us. And the reason why we want you to scan it and email it, because we know that you have a copy on your computer. So if any of these government agencies that we turn you on to that you're going to send your grievance letter to, once a document that we identified, you're not searching for it in some box, and you just push a button, they've got it. And I've had clients say to me, "Oh, Dan, that's a lot of work for me to have to go through all of those boxes." And I said, "Don't do it then. Don't do it. Just let them take your house."
Yeah, let them take your house, or go somewhere, to one of these little mailbox stores or FedEx stores, whatever, where they'll probably charge you $1 a page. But if you don't want to spend the time copying, then pay to have it copied and scanned into the email, and then get a copy and send it over to you. Yeah, but I find people are often lazy, and they want the easiest, cheapest way out. But when it doesn't work, then they cry and they come back to you and go, "Oh, I should have used you. You were right." And that's the hardest part of the lesson is when you are a reality check. I know we're the same kind of personality. We both tell people, "No, that's not going to happen. It's not how it works. I am the reality check for you. I don't care if 99% of the other people tell you it's going to work. I'm going to tell you it's not. And I may look like the bad guy, but I want you to win, or to have a good outcome, not be scammed by somebody." So I think that's, a big part of it. Now, people, they can go to your website because you publish a ton of press releases on mortgagefraudexaminers.com. And then you mentioned just a few minutes ago, you also do the bank notes, which is, I believe, noteexaminers.com?
Yeah, that's noteexaminers.com. The name of the company is Mortgage Note and Portfolio Examiners. That's what we do for the pension funds and the investors in these notes. So we analyze just the for them. And that's the other ridiculous part, too. You have all these securitization auditors tell you these notes don't exist. And I'm like, well, what the hell do you think we're examining when we're examining these notes that they bought from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, $18 billion worth? That's all we're
that's a whole other. Yeah, that's a whole other part of the show because we didn't even mention MERS and how things supposedly got lost and reestablishment of the note. But I think we need to save some of that for next week's show. So we're just about out of time here, and so I want to
remember, Laurie. Next week's show is not going to be part 2. It's going to be hopefully with the IRS.
That's correct. We're going to have an IRS person on that's going to talk all about IRS scams. I can't wait to hear that one because I know plenty of people who get those fake phone calls. And then the following week we will do part 2 of the securitization audits. So, Storm, great show as always. And
yes.
Thank you. Yep, it was. And many more to come. And thank our listeners today for joining us on Fraudsters Radio. Join us again next week, Monday, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And we do want to hear your stories. You can contact us through the Fraudsters Radio Facebook page.
Bye, Laurie.
Bye, Storm.
Have your house payments skyrocketed under an adjustable rate mortgage? Have you been laid off or had your hours cut? Are balloon payments coming due? You need help from mortgage fraud examiners. To stop the housing crisis, Congress and the White House are pinning their hopes on homeowners renegotiating their mortgages. The trouble is, the banks are saying no 80% of the time. Mortgage fraud examiners can help you get the leverage you need to turn things around. They estimate that up to 85% of all mortgages are legally deficient. Mortgage fraud examiners can perform a mortgage transaction analysis and an appraisal to find legal deficits in your mortgage. It's like CSI for your home loan. Banks and lenders suddenly start cooperating when faced with a lawsuit for violating lending laws or appraisal fraud. Find out how mortgage fraud examiners can help you. Visit Mortgage Fraud Examiners. Call 844-920-7200. That's 844-920-7200.